Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the National Education Association, Lily Eskelsen García.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches. I was just elected as the president of this nation's largest labor union, the National Education Association. How cool is that? And my friend Sue, who taught next door to me at Orchard Elementary in Salt Lake City, Utah for 10 years, she said, Lily, you know how ironic it is that you wanted to be president of the NEA. You hated faculty meetings. And it is true that when I die, I want to die in a faculty meeting. Because the transition between life and death would be so subtle. You would not even notice. But here's the thing, at a faculty meeting, the principal would pretty much like read us the district memo and then tell us what someone had decided for us. The first time I went to a union meeting with the Utah Education Association, the local president, who was a second grade teacher, said, this is what we're facing. We need to decide what we are going to do about it. That's what my colleagues and everyone in this room have in common. Nobody gave us permission to do something about it. We took the power that we always had and we took it into our own hands and we did what we thought was right. Educators need that power today more than we ever have before. But educators need you more than we ever had before. We need the power that's in your hands, in your blogs, in your tweets, in your voices at events, as you're knocking on doors. You are that megaphone to the world, and we need the world to see what we are seeing. I cannot exaggerate the social justice crisis in our public schools today. Privateers and profiteers and corporate factory school reformers have corrupted what it means to teach and what it means to learn, and we see it everywhere. We see it in El Paso, where one administrator was paid almost $60,000 in testing bonuses when scores went sky high at Bowie High School, almost 100% Latino kids. He accomplished this, unbeknownst to anyone at the time, by developing a list of students who did poorly on standardized tests, most of them English language learners. He bullied them, he humiliated them, he threatened them that maybe the La Migra was going to come and have to visit their families until he reached his quota of a sufficient number of them dropping out of school. The average test scores went up dramatically. He hit his number and he made tens of thousands of dollars. We see it in Oklahoma, where state law required that third graders be held accountable for hitting an arbitrary cut score on a standardized test in reading. 1 point below the cut score and you don't get to go to 4th grade, even if your teachers and your parents say you should. 8,000 Oklahoma third graders were subsequently told they were failures and would have to repeat all of 3rd grade, including, by the way, all the classes they did pass, until they could hit that reading cut score. We see it in Florida, where Kim Cook teaches 2nd grade in a K-2 primary school. The year she was chosen Teacher of the Year, way to go, congratulations, Kim. She was judged as officially ineffective, as was every single teacher in her school, because the test scores of 3rd graders at a different school, 3rd graders she never met, let alone taught, didn't hit their cut score. You see, you don't test 2nd graders in Florida, but they thought it was so important that every teacher have a test score next to their name that they just assigned random students to her and her colleagues. and held her accountable for improving the test scores of students she never saw. And apparently she was to do this telepathically. The association sued on the grounds that this was medically stupid. And the judge agreed with our argument, but ruled that unfortunately stupid is not technically unconstitutional in Florida. We see it in Ethan Radisky. Ethan turned 11 years old this year. He was born with severe brain damage, with cerebral palsy, and was blind. He was still required to take Florida's standardized tests so they could judge his teacher. While he was in hospice care, in a morphine coma, the school district kept sending his mother messages asking why Ethan has not yet taken his standardized tests. His mother wrote this letter to the school district. Ethan is dying. His loving and dedicated teacher has been visiting him every day, bringing some love, peace, and light into these last days. She is required to document why he is not meeting his curriculum requirements. This madness must stop. Madness grows out of the pillars of factory model corporate school reform. Standardize, privatize, deprofessionalize, hit your number. None of it is working. The pillars are collapsing, but the children are still being caught in the rubble. The drivers behind the corporate school reform are zombies who will not die, and they are eating our children's brains. They are well-funded, and they are motivated. Alec loves this model. They love the absurdity of no child left untested. They got a critical mass of politicians to believe it was possible for 100% of our students to be above average. Because all things are possible to people who don't know what they're talking about. With this prioritization model, they can now manipulate phony data to prove that if one child doesn't hit some cut score, that the entire school has failed and should be turned over to private voucher schools or franchise charter schools. And you don't have to do anything to improve the schools, you just have to blame the teachers. Low tax, low service politicians love this model. When we go out and we advocate for what our students who live in deep poverty need in programs and services and facilities, they just pick up the ALEC playbook. You know, if we had better teachers, then the roof wouldn't leak. You know, if we had better teachers, it wouldn't matter that kids came to school hungry. Teachers are the problem, more tests are the solution. And then you never have to deal with the inequality of resources between schools in richer neighborhoods and schools in poorer neighborhoods. And bonus, you can actually help your buddy, like Rupert Murdoch. Edu businesses love this model, and Rupert wants to teach your children well. He cares so much. You know, he's already dropped $360 million on his new edu business that provides testing and assessment tools. He says, and this is the quote, "When it comes to K-12 education, we see a $500 billion sector in the US alone that is waiting desperately to be transformed." If that doesn't give you a little chill. So the players are all lined up against equity, against measuring what matters, against putting good data in the hands of caring, competent professionals so that they can personalize and humanize education. But
Utah State Legislature in my state passed overwhelmingly a universal voucher school privatization law where practically anybody could declare themselves a school and get state dollars for that school that came right out of the public schools. The NEA and the UEA could not stop the ALEC forces in the Utah State Legislature. But Utah educators, through our union, decided to put it before the people. Without one dime paid to a signature gatherer, teachers, parents, support staff, activists in the community, they collected over 124,000 signatures. They put that voucher law on the ballot. Privateers, profiteers poured millions into that campaign. The Heritage Foundation defended the privatization revolution, and the reddest of the red states, these are conservative, Republican Utah voters who rejected overwhelmingly the privatization voucher law in Utah. It was not conservative versus liberal or Republican versus Democrat. It was smart versus stupid. And smart won. People power can still win when it's organized. NEA is now organizing to end the corruption of high-stakes commercial standardized tests. Hitting a cut score on a standardized test is not the purpose of education. I knew my purpose every day I walked into my classroom, and it was to open a child's mind to its infinite possibilities. That is what we're fighting for, and leads us back to that faculty meeting, where this year I know a principal who read the district memo on testing targets, and he put the memo down and he said, we'll give the test. We're going to do the best we can. But I'll be damned if we will let that test get in the way of our giving these kids a good education. We will all be damned if we don't fight this corporatization of our schools with every breath in our bodies. Join us. Ya es tiempo. Now is the time. Go, fight, win. Mil gracias, amigos y amigas.